Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Harbinger, staring out at the endless stars. The massive ship stretched 12 kilometers in every direction around him. Its dark metal hull was covered in weapon systems and armor plating thick enough to stop planet-killing missiles. This was not just a warship. It was a monster built by humans who had learned to fear each other. The Harbinger had 50,000 crew members living inside its belly. Most of them never saw the outside walls of the ship. They worked in factories, lived in small apartments, and raised families in artificial parks under fake sunlight. The ship was like a floating city designed for one purpose: to destroy anything that threatened humanity. Jake never wanted to command this beast. He was a simple man from Ohio who joined the Space Navy to see the stars. Instead, he found himself in charge of the most feared weapon humanity had ever built. Even human colonies were scared when the Harbinger showed up in their space. The ship was made during the Civil War that almost tore humanity apart. Earth and the outer colonies fought for 3 years. Millions died, cities burned. The Harbinger was built to end wars quickly by being so scary that enemies would surrender rather than fight. Jake walked across the bridge, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. The bridge was huge, with dozens of crew members working at control stations. Giant screens showed the space around them. Right now they were patrolling near the edge of human territory, close to the Centauri border. Captain, called Lisa Park from her station. She was the communications officer, a small woman with black hair and quick fingers that danced across her controls. I'm getting some strange readings on long-range sensors. Jake moved to her station. What kind of strange? Lisa frowned at her screens. Big energy signatures coming from deep space. Really big? I've never seen anything like this before. Show me, Jake said. The main screen changed to show a map of local space. Red dots appeared at the edge of the display, moving slowly toward human territory. There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds. How big are those contacts? Jake asked. Each one is about 2 kilometers long, Lisa said. But they're not shaped like any human ships I know. The computer can't identify them. Jake felt his stomach get tight. In all of human history, they had never found alien life. Not even bacteria. Humans were alone in the galaxy, or so they thought. Get me Admiral White on quantum communication, Jake ordered. Priority 1. Sir, said Pete Johnson, his first officer. Pete was a tall man with gray hair who had served with Jake for 10 years. Should we go to battle stations? Jake looked at the red dots on the screen. They were getting closer. Not yet, but warm up the weapon systems, just in case. The alien ships were beautiful. As they got closer, the Harbinger's cameras could see them clearly. They looked like they were made of crystal and light, flowing through space like fish swimming through water. Their hulls seemed to change color as they moved, shifting from blue to green to silver. 37 ships, reported Amy Torres from the tactical station. She was young but smart, with brown eyes that missed nothing. They're moving in perfect formation. No weapons that I can detect. Admiral Karen White appeared on the main screen. She was sitting in her office on Earth, 10 light years away. Quantum communication made it possible to talk instantly across any distance. Captain Morrison, she said. Her voice was serious but excited. Are you seeing what I think you're seeing? Yes, ma'am. First contact. They're about 6 hours away from our position. This is the most important day in human history, Admiral White said. I'm sending diplomatic teams, but they won't arrive for 12 hours. You need to handle initial contact, Jake nodded. What are my orders? Be friendly. Be careful. Don't shoot unless they shoot first. This could change everything for humanity. The quantum link ended. Jake looked around his bridge. Everyone was staring at him. The weight of representing all of humanity pressed down on his shoulders. Lisa, try to contact them. Use every frequency we have. Mathematics, pictures, music, anything that might work. For the next hour, Lisa sent signals toward the alien fleet. She tried radio waves, laser pulses, and even quantum transmissions. Nothing worked. The aliens kept coming but didn't respond. They're slowing down, Amy reported, stopping about 1 million kilometers away, just outside our weapons range. Smart, Pete said. They don't want to look threatening. A new dot appeared on the screen, much smaller than the others. It was moving toward the Harbinger. Single ship coming our way, Amy said. It's tiny, maybe 50 meters long. Jake watched the small ship approach. It was even more beautiful than the large ones, glowing with soft white light that pulsed like a heartbeat. No weapons, Amy confirmed. It's just a little courier ship. They want to talk, Jake said. Lisa, open all channels. Let them know we're here. The small ship stopped 1 kilometer away from the Harbinger. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lisa's equipment started going crazy. Captain, I'm getting something. It's not radio or laser. It's something else. Like music, but also like speech. The bridge speakers filled with sounds unlike anything Jake had ever heard. It was beautiful and strange, like whale songs mixed with church bells and crystal chimes. Can you make sense of it? Jake asked. The computer is trying to find patterns. It might be language. Jake looked at the small alien ship floating near his massive warship. The Harbinger could destroy it with one shot from the smallest weapon, but he didn't want to. For the first time in years, he felt hope instead of fear. Keep working on it, Lisa. This is it. This is really happening. As the alien sounds filled the bridge, Jake thought about what this moment meant. Humans were not alone. There were other people out there among the stars. Maybe they could be friends. Maybe they could learn from each other. He had no idea that in a few hours he would discover that these beautiful aliens had come to destroy everything that made humanity human. He had no idea that his monster ship would be the only thing standing between his people and a fate worse than death. For now, Jake Morrison just listened to alien music and hoped for the best. The alien ship docked with the Harbinger 6 hours later. Jake Morrison stood in the main docking bay with his senior officers, watching the airlock cycle open. His heart was beating fast. This was the most important moment in human history. The first alien stepped through the door and Jake's breath caught in his throat. It was tall, maybe 3 meters high, with long arms and legs that seemed to flow like water. Its skin was pale blue and seemed to glow with inner light. Large black eyes looked around the docking bay with what seemed like sadness. Welcome aboard the Harbinger, Jake said, stepping forward. I am Captain Jake Morrison. The alien made musical sounds like the ones they had heard earlier. A small device on its chest began to speak in perfect English. I am Zethara, voice of the ethereal collective. I speak for 12 species who have found peace among the stars. The translator made the alien's voice sound gentle and sad. We come to welcome humanity to the greater galaxy. Jake smiled. This was going better than he had hoped. We're honored to meet you. Please come with us. We have prepared a meeting room. They walked through the corridors of the Harbinger. Jake noticed how the alien moved, like it was floating instead of walking. Other crew members stopped to stare. Some looked excited. Others looked afraid. The meeting room was the nicest space on the ship. It had a long table, comfortable chairs, and screens showing peaceful images of Earth. Jake had ordered the weapons displays removed. He wanted this to be friendly. Ryan Davis, the cultural attaché, was already waiting. He was a thin man with glasses who knew more about human history and culture than anyone else on the ship. His job was to help aliens understand humanity. Zethara, Jake said. This is Ryan Davis. He can tell you about our people and our culture. The alien sat down, its movements graceful and smooth. We are eager to learn. The collective has met many species, but none from this part of the galaxy. Ryan opened his computer and began showing pictures of Earth. Cities, forests, oceans, mountains. Humanity comes from a world called Earth. We have built great civilizations and spread to many star systems. Zethara watched the images with those large black eyes. Beautiful. Your world has much life, much diversity. This is good. We have a rich history, Ryan continued. Many cultures, many languages, many different ways of thinking. Tell me about your conflicts, Zethara said suddenly. How do you solve problems between your people? Ryan looked uncomfortable. Well, we've had wars. Many wars, actually. But we've also had peace. We've learned to work together. Wars? The alien's voice became sharper. You fight each other? Not anymore. Well, not as much. We had a civil war recently, but that's over now. Jake saw where this was going and tried to change the subject. What about your people? Tell us about the collective. Zethara stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the alien fleet waited in perfect formation. We are 12 species who found unity. Long ago, we were like you. We fought, we killed, we destroyed worlds in our anger. What changed? Jake asked. We learned that violence is a disease, a sickness that destroys civilizations. We found the cure. Ryan leaned forward. What kind of cure? We removed the violence from ourselves. We cut away the parts of our minds that wanted to hurt others. Now we are peaceful. Now we are whole. Jake felt cold. You changed your own minds? Yes, and we have helped others do the same. 17 species have accepted our guidance. They are all peaceful now. All happy. What happened to the species that didn't accept? Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Zathara turned from the window. They were corrected. For their own good and the good of the galaxy. The room was quiet for a long moment. Jake looked at Ryan, who was pale and shaking. Corrected how? Ryan asked. Their aggressive instincts were removed. Their weapons destroyed. Their violent cultures replaced with peaceful ones. They thanked us afterward. Jake stood up slowly. You're talking about changing who people are. Taking away parts of their minds, only the bad parts. The parts that cause pain and death. Those aren't just bad parts, Jake said, his voice getting louder. They're part of what makes us human. The drive to fight for what we believe in. The anger that helps us protect our families. The stubbornness that makes us never give up. Zathara's eyes grew wider. You defend these violent impulses? Ryan pulled up new images on his computer. Pictures of human art, music, literature. Our greatest achievements come from our struggles. Our best stories are about heroes fighting against evil. Our most beautiful music comes from pain and joy mixed together. This is the sickness talking, Zathara said. You cannot see how it poisons your thoughts. Jake walked to another window where he could see the Harbinger's weapon systems. Miles of gun barrels and missile tubes. Enough firepower to destroy planets. This ship, Jake said. We built it to fight other humans. It's a monster. But it's our monster. We made it because we choose to be ready to fight for what matters to us. This ship is an abomination, Zathara said. It exists only to cause death. It exists to protect life, Jake shot back. The life we choose to live, free, dangerous, human. Zathara was quiet for a long time. Then it spoke, and its voice was cold. We had hoped humanity would be different. We had hoped you would choose peace willingly. But we see now that the violence runs too deep in you. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means humanity will be corrected. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your aggressive instincts will be removed. Your children will grow up peaceful and happy. And if we refuse? Refusal is not possible. We have the technology to make this painless. In 1 year, humanity will thank us. Jake looked at his officers. Pete's hand was moving toward his sidearm. Amy was backing toward the door. Ryan was staring at his computer screen in horror. Get off my ship, Jake said quietly. Captain Morrison, you do not understand. We are offering you paradise. Get off my ship, Jake said again, louder this time. Zathara moved toward the door. We are sorry it must be this way. But the galaxy cannot allow your violence to spread. You will understand when it is over. After the alien left, Jake stood alone in the meeting room. Through the windows he could see the collective fleet. Beautiful, graceful ships that hid a horrible purpose. Pete came back into the room. Captain, what are our orders? Jake looked at his first officer. Get me Admiral White. Tell her first contact just became a war. Outside, the alien ships began to move into attack formation. They came in peace, but they brought slavery disguised as paradise. Jake Morrison realized that humanity's monster reputation was about to be put to the ultimate test. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Harbinger, watching the alien fleet spread out around them. The beautiful crystal ships moved like dancers, taking positions that would let them attack from all sides. Red warning lights flashed throughout the ship as the crew went to battle stations. Captain, Amy Torres called from her tactical station. I'm counting 200 alien ships now. More are coming out of hyperspace every few minutes. Any response from Admiral White? Jake asked. Lisa Park shook her head. The aliens are jamming our quantum communications. We can't reach Earth or any other human ships. Pete Johnson moved to Jake's side. Sir, there are 3 other human ships in this system. The cargo vessel Thunder Bay, the patrol ship Denver, and the science vessel New Hope. Should we try to reach them? Before Jake could answer, the alien fleet made its first move. Thousands of small craft poured out of the larger ships like angry bees from disturbed hives. Each one was about the size of a fighter, but they moved in ways that no human pilot could survive. Those things are pulling 50 G turns, Amy said, amazement in her voice. No living being could handle that kind of acceleration. Drones, Pete said. Remote-controlled. The swarm of alien fighters rushed toward the human ships. Jake watched on the main screen as they surrounded the Thunder Bay first. The cargo ship tried to run, but it was too slow and too big. The Thunder Bay is firing, Amy reported. Their weapons are hitting the alien fighters, but there are too many of them. Jake watched in horror as the alien swarm covered the cargo ship like metal insects. Strange purple energy beams shot from the fighters into the Thunder Bay's hull. The cargo ship's engines went quiet. Its weapons stopped firing. "Captain, I'm getting a transmission from the Thunder Bay," Lisa said. "Audio only," a weak voice came through the speakers. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Thunder Bay. Our crew is... We can't. Something's wrong with our minds. We can't think clearly. We can't..." The transmission ended. "The same thing's happening to the Denver," Amy said. "The alien fighters are swarming it now." Jake watched the patrol ship try to fight. The Denver was a military vessel with good weapons and trained crew. But the alien swarm was too big and too fast. Within minutes, the patrol ship was silent and drifting. "Those energy beams," Jake said. "They're not trying to destroy our ships. They're doing something to the crews." Ben Collins, the chief engineer, looked up from his station. "Sir, I'm analyzing the alien weapon signatures. Those purple beams seem to be targeting neural activity. They're affecting human brains somehow." "The correction process," Pete said grimly. "They're turning our people into zombies." The New Hope lasted a little longer because it ran as soon as the attack started. But the alien fighters were faster. Jake watched the science vessel get swarmed just like the others. Soon it too was quiet and dead in space. "Captain," Amy said, her voice tight with fear, "the swarm is heading for us now. 20,000 fighters, maybe more." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people trusted him to protect them. But more than that, they trusted him to protect humanity itself. "Ben, how long until our experimental weapons are ready?" The chief engineer's hands flew over his controls. "Sir, the gravitational pulse cannons have never been tested in combat. The plasma arrays are working, but at full power they might damage our own systems." "Captain," Amy said, "we could retreat. The Harbinger is fast enough to outrun them." "No," Jake said firmly. "If we run, they'll follow us to human space. They'll do to Earth what they just did to those ships." He turned to face his crew. "Everyone listen to me. What we do in the next hour will decide the future of humanity. Those aliens want to take away everything that makes us human. They want to turn us into peaceful slaves." He looked at the approaching swarm on the main screen. "We built this ship to be a monster. Today we're going to be the monster that protects our people. All stations battle ready," Pete announced over the ship's communication system. "This is not a drill. This is war." The Harbinger's weapon systems came to life. Gun turrets the size of buildings turned toward the alien swarm. Missile tubes loaded with planet-killing warheads opened their mouths. Energy shields that could stop asteroid impacts flickered into existence around the ship's hull. "The aliens are trying to communicate," Lisa said. "They're sending the same message over and over." "Let me hear it," Jake ordered. Zathara's voice filled the bridge. "Humans of the vessel Harbinger, you cannot escape correction. Surrender now and the process will be painless. Continue to resist and you will suffer before you are healed." "Send a message back," Jake said. "Tell them humanity doesn't surrender." The alien swarm reached the Harbinger's outer defense perimeter. Jake had expected them to attack like human fighters, coming in waves and trying to avoid the ship's weapons. Instead, they came straight at the ship in one massive cloud, like they didn't care about losses. "Firing," Amy announced. The Harbinger's main guns opened up. Each plasma cannon shot bolts of energy hot enough to melt steel. The gravitational pulse weapons twisted space itself, crushing everything in their path. Point defense lasers swept through the alien formation like deadly light shows. The alien fighters died by the hundreds, then by the thousands. But there were so many of them that it didn't seem to matter. They kept coming, their purple energy beams reaching for the Harbinger's hull. "Shields holding," Ben reported. "But they're hitting us with those neural disruptor beams." "If they get through, they won't," Jake said. "Amy, target their motherships. All main guns." The Harbinger turned its massive weapons toward the beautiful crystal ships hanging back from the battle. Each one was 2 kilometers long and probably carried millions of aliens. Jake felt sick about what he was about to do, but he had no choice. "Firing all main batteries," Amy said. The space around the Harbinger lit up like a new sun. Plasma bolts and gravitational pulses shot out toward the alien fleet. The first shots hit a crystal ship that had been moving gracefully through space just seconds before. The alien ship didn't just explode. It came apart like a flower blooming in reverse, pieces of crystal and metal spinning away in all directions. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull as whatever power source it used went critical. "Direct hit," Amy said, her voice amazed. "The entire ship is gone." More shots reached the alien fleet. Each hit destroyed another crystal ship completely. The aliens had never faced weapons like these, built by a species that had spent centuries learning how to kill each other efficiently. The remaining alien ships are retreating, Amy reported. The fighter swarm is breaking off. Jake watched the beautiful alien fleet run away from his monster ship. Bodies and debris floated between them, the remains of alien crews who had come to bring peace to the galaxy. Damage report, Jake ordered. Minor hull damage, Ben said. Our shields held. Casualties are light. What about the other human ships? Lisa tried to contact them, but there was no response. Sir, I think their crews are still alive, but they're not responding to communication. Jake looked at the 3 human ships floating quietly in space. The aliens had taken away their ability to think, to choose, to be human. It was worse than death, Captain, Pete said quietly. What do we do now? Jake stared at the wreckage of the alien fleet. Now we prepare for the real war. Because when the rest of the galaxy hears what we just did, they're going to be very afraid of us. In the distance, the surviving alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying news of humanity's monster back to their peaceful empire. 2 weeks after the battle, Jake Morrison stood in his ready room aboard the Harbinger, reading reports that made his stomach turn. The ship was heading back toward human space, but they were no longer alone in the galaxy. Dr. Helen Martinez, the ship's xenobiologist, sat across from his desk. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. For the past week, she had been studying the alien technology they had recovered from the battle. Captain, she said, holding up a small crystal device. This is what they use to correct other species. It sends signals directly into the brain, rewriting neural pathways. How does it work? Jake asked. It targets the parts of the brain that control aggression, ambition, and independent thinking. Once it's done, the person becomes calm and peaceful. They stop caring about things they used to fight for. Jake picked up the device. It felt warm in his hands and seemed to pulse with inner light. Is it reversible? Helen shook her head. I don't think so. The changes are permanent. The person is still alive, still conscious, but they're not the same person anymore. Pete Johnson entered the ready room carrying a datapad. Captain, we've finished analyzing the alien database we recovered. You need to see this. Pete put the datapad on the desk and activated a holographic display. A map of the galaxy appeared, with different colored areas marked throughout. The blue areas are controlled by the Ethereal Collective, Pete explained. They've been expanding for over 10,000 years. Jake looked at the map. Most of the galaxy was blue. How many species? 437, Pete said. All corrected, all peaceful. Helen pointed to a yellow section near the edge of the galaxy. This area here used to be controlled by something called the warrior clans. According to the records, they were a group of species that refused correction. What happened to them? They fought for 300 years. Eventually, the collective wore them down and corrected them too. Jake studied the map. Humanity controlled a tiny red dot at the very edge. They were surrounded by the blue of the collective's empire. Captain, Lisa Park's voice came through the communication system. We're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. Put it through, Jake said. Admiral White appeared on the holographic display, replacing the galaxy map. She looked tired and worried. Captain Morrison, I've been reading your battle reports. The President and the Joint Chiefs are very concerned. About what, Admiral? About what you've started. Our deep space monitoring stations are detecting massive fleet movements throughout the galaxy. The aliens are mobilizing everything they have. Jake felt cold. How massive? Thousands of ships, Captain. Maybe tens of thousands. They're all heading toward human space. Pete stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, we didn't have a choice. They were going to lobotomize our entire species. I know that, Commander. But now they see us as a threat to their entire way of life. Every corrected species in the galaxy is being told that humanity is a disease that must be stopped. Helen looked up from her alien device. Admiral, there's something else you should know. We've been monitoring subspace communication since the battle. The corrected species aren't as peaceful as the collective claims. What do you mean? Some of them are starting to remember who they used to be. The neural modifications are beginning to fail in some individuals. They're sending secret messages to each other. Jake leaned forward. What kind of messages? Helen activated her own data pad. Alien voices filled the room, speaking in languages the computer was still trying to translate. They're asking questions, Helen said. Questions about their past, about who they used to be. Some of them are asking for help. Help from who? Admiral White asked. From us, from the monsters who defeated the collective. The room was quiet for a moment. Jake looked at the faces around him. These people had followed him into the worst battle in human history, and they were ready to do it again. Admiral, Jake said, what are our orders? Officially? Return to Earth immediately for debriefing and court-martial proceedings. And unofficially? Admiral White was quiet for a long moment. Jake, you've put humanity in an impossible position. We're facing an enemy that controls most of the galaxy. They have resources we can't even imagine. But you've also given hope to species that haven't felt hope in thousands of years. We're getting messages from all over the galaxy. Secret transmissions from corrected worlds asking if the rumors are true. Asking if someone finally stood up to the collective. Pete looked at the galaxy map still glowing in the corner of the room. So what do? We prepare for war, Admiral White said. Real war. Not the civil conflict we just finished, but a fight for the survival of everything that makes us human. Jake stood up and walked to the window of his ready room. Outside, space looked peaceful and empty. But he knew it was full of enemies now, all coming for them. How long do we have? He asked. Our scouts estimate 6 months before their main fleet reaches human space, Admiral White said. Maybe less. Can we win? Admiral White's image flickered as the quantum communication struggled with distance. I don't know, Jake. The Harbinger proved that our weapons work against them, but we're outnumbered 1,000,000-1. Jake turned back to his crew. Then we better make sure we're the scariest monsters the galaxy has ever seen. After Admiral White signed off, Jake sat alone in his ready room looking at the alien device Helen had left behind. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, like everything about the collective. Pete knocked on his door. Captain, we've got another problem. What now? The crew of the Thunder Bay, Denver, and New Hope. We managed to rescue them, but they're corrected, Jake finished. Yes, sir. They're alive and healthy, but they don't want to fight anymore. They don't want to do anything except sit peacefully and stare at the walls. Jake closed his eyes. 300 human beings turned into living dolls by alien technology. It could have been his entire crew. It could have been all of humanity. Pete, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we need every ship, every weapon, every person willing to fight. Tell them the monsters are coming home. Outside his window, Jake could see the stars that hid the collective's empire. Somewhere out there, 10,000 years of enforced peace was preparing to crush the last free species in the galaxy. But humanity had always been good at being monsters when they needed to be. Now they would find out if being monsters was enough to stay free. 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Harbinger, watching the largest battle fleet in galactic history emerge from hyperspace. The collective had come with everything they had. 10,000 crystal ships stretching across the star system like a glittering wall of death. My God, Pete Johnson whispered beside him. There are so many of them. Jake looked at his own fleet. 50 human ships, including every dreadnought, battleship, and destroyer that humanity could build or repair. It wasn't nearly enough. Fleet Admiral Sandra Kim's face appeared on the main screen from her flagship, the UES Constitution. All ships, this is Admiral Kim. Today we fight not just for humanity, but for the right of every species in the galaxy to choose their own path. The alien fleet moved forward in perfect formation. At the center was a massive ship, larger than anything Jake had ever seen. It was 20 kilometers long and covered in the same beautiful crystal armor as the smaller vessels. That's their command ship, Amy Torres reported from Tactical. It's broadcasting on all frequencies. Zethara's voice filled the bridge, but now it sounded different. Cold and mechanical. Humans, you have brought chaos to our peaceful galaxy. Your violence has infected other species. You have awakened things that should have stayed sleeping. Jake activated the communication system. This is Captain Morrison of the Harbinger. We're not here to bring chaos. We're here to give people a choice. Choice is the disease that destroys civilizations, Zethara replied. We offer peace. Perfect peace. Why do you resist? Because perfect peace isn't peace at all, Jake said. It's death with a heartbeat. The alien fleet stopped just outside weapon range. For a moment, both sides stared at each other across the darkness of space. Then everything changed. The collective's secret weapon revealed itself. Thousands of small pods shot out from their ships, heading not for the human fleet but for empty space around them. When the pods exploded, they released clouds of glittering particles. Captain, Ben Collins called from engineering. Those particles are doing something to our systems. Our computers are slowing down. It's a consciousness virus, Dr. Helen Martinez said over the communication system from her lab. They're trying to rewrite our brains through our own technology. Jake felt a strange calm beginning to settle over his thoughts. The anger and fear he had been feeling started to fade away. Around the bridge, crew members were beginning to smile peaceful smiles. Ben cut all connections to the ship's computer network, Jake ordered, fighting against the growing calm in his mind. Manual controls only. Already on it, Captain, Ben replied. The Harbinger's shielding is protecting us better than the other ships. Jake looked at the tactical display. Several human ships were drifting, their crews no longer responding to orders. The virus was working. Admiral Kim, can you hear me? Jake called. Barely, came the reply. Half my crew is affected. We're losing ships without firing a shot. The collective fleet began to move forward, confident that their weapon was working, but they had made one mistake. They had assumed that humanity's greatest weakness was their capacity for violence. They were about to learn that it was actually their greatest strength. All ships, Jake broadcast on every frequency. Remember who you are. Remember what you're fighting for. Don't let them take that away from you. Dr. Carl Adams, the ship's medical officer, came onto the bridge carrying a box of small devices. Captain, I've been working with Dr. Martinez. These neural amplifiers boost the brain's natural resistance to outside interference. Jake took one of the devices and attached it to his temple. Immediately, his thoughts became clearer. The artificial calm disappeared, replaced by the familiar mix of fear, anger, and determination that made him human. Get these to all senior officers, Jake ordered, and prepare to broadcast Dr. Martinez's countervirus. Helen's voice came through the communication system. Captain, I've found something in the alien database. The collective isn't as united as they pretend. Some species remember pieces of who they used to be. What does that mean? It means we might have allies out there. Species that want to be free again. Jake looked at the approaching alien fleet.
How do we reach them?
We show them that resistance is possible. We remind them what they've lost. The battle began when Admiral Kim's ship fired the first shot. A plasma bolt crossed space and struck one of the smaller crystal ships. The alien vessel shattered like glass, its pieces spinning away into space. The collective responded with their own weapons. Beams of purple energy shot out from thousands of ships trying to overwhelm the human fleet with sheer numbers. But humanity had learned to build their ships tough and their shields strong. All weapons, fire at will, Jake ordered. The Harbinger's massive guns opened up, sending destruction racing toward the alien fleet. Each shot destroyed an enemy ship completely. The experimental weapons that had never been tested in combat worked better than anyone had hoped. But there were too many enemies. For every alien ship the humans destroyed, 10 more took its place. Slowly, the human fleet was being pushed back. Captain, Lisa Park called out, I'm receiving transmissions from inside the collective fleet. Some of their ships are breaking formation. On the main screen, Jake could see chaos spreading through the alien fleet. Ships that had moved in perfect harmony for thousands of years were suddenly turning on each other. The corrected species are fighting back, Helen reported excitedly. Our battle is reminding them of who they used to be. Jake watched as former slave species turned their weapons on their collective masters. It wasn't enough to win the battle, but it was creating confusion and fear among the aliens. Admiral Kim, concentrate all fire on their command ship, Jake ordered. If we can take out their leadership. Already trying, Kim replied. But it's too well defended. Jake looked at his tactical display. The human fleet was down to 30 ships and still being pushed back. They were losing, but they were also inspiring a galaxy-wide rebellion against 10,000 years of enforced peace. Captain, Pete said quietly, we're not going to win this fight. Jake nodded. I know, but we can make sure they remember us. He turned to Amy at Tactical. Prepare to ram their command ship. Load all remaining nuclear warheads and set them to detonate on impact. Sir? Amy said, her voice shaking. That's a suicide run. No, Jake said. That's a declaration that humanity will never surrender. Jake activated the ship-wide communication system. Attention all hands, this is the captain. In a few minutes, we're going to do something that will be remembered for as long as there are free people in the galaxy. We're going to show the universe what it means to be human. He looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had followed him through hell and were ready to do it again. The collective thinks they can take away our choice, our anger, our stubbornness, our refusal to give up. They're about to learn that these aren't weaknesses to be corrected. They're strengths to be celebrated. The Harbinger turned toward the massive alien command ship and began to accelerate. Other human ships saw what they were doing and formed up alongside them. If they were going to die, they would die as monsters protecting everything they loved. As they raced toward the enemy, Jake saw something beautiful on the tactical display. All across the galaxy, enslaved species were rising up against their peaceful masters. The battle at Earth was just the beginning of a war that would reshape the entire galaxy. Sir, Lisa called out, I'm getting a message from the collective command ship. Put it through. Zethara's voice filled the bridge one last time, but now it sounded afraid. Captain Morrison, please stop. We can negotiate. We can find a peaceful solution. We tried peaceful, Jake replied. You chose war when you decided to take away our humanity. The alien command ship grew larger on the screen as the Harbinger closed the distance. Jake could see weapons trying to track his ship, but they were moving too fast and at too strange an angle. Impact in 30 seconds, Amy reported. Jake looked around his bridge one last time. It's been an honor serving with all of you. The Harbinger slammed into the alien command ship at nearly half the speed of light. The nuclear warheads detonated a microsecond later. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from Earth 10 light-years away. When the light faded, both ships were gone. But across the galaxy, freed species were broadcasting a single message on every frequency. The monsters have shown us the way. Today we choose to be free. 3 months later, Tony Garcia, the Harbinger's former communications specialist, stood on the observation deck of the new space station, built from the wreckage of the battle. He had survived because he was on a rescue mission when the ship made its final run. Through the window, he could see ships from dozens of different species arriving at Earth. Former slaves of the collective, now free to choose their own path. Some came asking for help in their own fights for freedom. Others came simply to thank the monsters who had reminded them what it meant to be alive. Tony smiled as he watched a beautiful crystal ship dock with the station. These were former collective members who had rejected their peaceful masters and chosen the dangerous path of freedom. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of enforced peace was over, replaced by something messier and more dangerous, but also more real. Humanity had paid a terrible price to preserve their right to choose.